Max, this is a treat for you to be joining me today on the podcast.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Your company is all about placemaking. So, I kind of feel like I created this podcast for you, people and places and how we use spaces, right?
That's right. That's what we do. That's what we focus on.
It could be your podcast.
Yeah, well, you're the agent here, so. Yeah.
The other interesting thing is that I think about what you do. I owned a company called the Retail Marketing Group years and years ago, and we did Merchants Association activities and did things for shopping centers and for different properties downtown and all of that. And we did elephant rides and dropped paper turkeys out of a helicopter and did crazy stuff like that. But you just take all of this to just an elevated level. I was in kindergarten and you're in college with
that
all
sounds
of
pretty
these.
sophisticated to me. Yeah.
Well, so just tell me about Musicant Group.
Sure. Musicant Group is now 10 years old, which I'm proud to say.
Wow.
And our mission and our service is to create places where people want to be. And wherever people want to be, they want to do things nearby, live, work, eat, play, shop, really anything. And so we're all about building community, building vitality. And we know that when you do that, it serves both the community and it also serves the surrounding commercial uses. So we have the great privilege of working with private entities, a lot of real estate clients across all the different asset classes, as well as public sector and nonprofit clients to generate social value and commercial value from vitality, the places that we all want to be in, and that it's a win-win across the board. So it's been a wonderful journey over the last 10 years, really taking that core vision and service and developing a lot of methodologies and strategies to create that vitality and certainly adapt during COVID as well, and also seize on some of the opportunities and help people do that.
Well, and let's talk about your journey, right? Okay,
Sure.
So we'll talk a little bit more about what you're doing today and what you've done in the last 10 years. But I read somewhere that you were a referee for adult sports in New York, and then you were a developer in Jamaica?
Yes, in part, yeah. So,
but you're also a Yale graduate. None of this makes sense to me. So please explain.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was born and raised in Southwest Minneapolis,
okay.
And my mom's Minnesotan, my dad's from the Bronx.
Oh, cool.
And so I was they met at a political fundraiser, and so being involved in the improvement of cities and our neighborhoods was something that ran very strongly through my family. There's also artists in my family as well. So through all that, it kind of distilled in me an interest and love of cities and public spaces and being interested in urban planning and just how cities function well for people or not and how to fix that. I always knew I wanted to be back here in the Twin Cities, but I also knew I needed to leave and experience something else before I came back here. So I went to my other homeland, which is New York City, which some of my family still lived in my early 20s after college, and ended up being drawn into economic development and how to kind of make these grand plans that oftentimes sit on a shelf actually happen. And so I ended up working for this very dynamic nonprofit in Jamaica, Queens, which is kind of like the Harlem of Queens. It's the economic and sort of social center of the African American and a large immigrant community in Eastern Queens. And this organization was pretty savvy. It owned a couple 100,000 square feet of office and retail, as well as 2/3 of the parking spaces for this area.
Wow.
And so, which in New York is a hot commodity.
Yep.
So, and it was really exciting to be there when I was, because I had a boss that had come over from, he was the number 2 person at the business improvement districts that ran Bryant Park, 34th Street, and the Grand Central areas. And so 34th Street is where the big Macy's is, and Penn Station. So those business improvement districts were kind of or still are, but certainly then at the forefront of placemaking and activation and how to use programming as a way to really drive a lot of commercial success through positive social activity. So he introduced me into this, the art and science of placemaking and activation. and we then applied it through our organization using our own property management staff to do public space improvements at these very, very busy transit and retail and commercial centers in a very different type of environment. And what really, when I first started doing it, I fell in love with it right away. It's very entrepreneurial, it's holistic, it's interdisciplinary, it's very creative, it's immediately tangible and has immediate impact. And it's also equitable in that, like, it really does work in any sort of area for any sort of population. And it's about making it better for the people that are there. It doesn't rely upon the success to draw in people who are not already there. Though that can be one of the strategies, but it doesn't need to be. So that was really that's where I was sold. And so that same boss encouraged me to go to business school rather than planning school. And so that's why I applied to a variety of schools and was lucky enough to go to Yale to get my MBA. And they have a pretty big social focus for their MBA program, which I was as I was learning, was surprised to learn, but it was a great fit for me. And my dream then was to come back to Minneapolis and do this placemaking and activation work. And what I found when I came back here was not only was there no job that had that focus, but there wasn't really even an organization doing it in the way that I wanted to, and I had seen successful in other places. And so I was very clear on what I wanted to do. And so I was asked, I kind of did a thought experiment with myself and said, is there any reason why what I'd seen done with district-focused nonprofits, is there any reason why that couldn't be done with a third-party service model? And I said there's no inherent reason why that shouldn't work. And then two, I was seeing, at least at that time, that no one was really servicing commercial common areas that are privately owned with this sort of service here in the Twin Cities, but really even nationally. And so I saw a big opportunity to create some win-wins and help commercial real estate world, but in doing so also help all the thousands of people that use those common area spaces on a daily basis to make their lives better as well. So that was in 2012, and since then, we've activated spaces that touch millions of square feet of commercial space, and put on thousands of events, and I've trained hundreds of people in our practice as well, and we've got a great body of work and an impact that we've hopefully created.
You make it sound easy, but when you go to people and tell them about this idea that nobody else is doing, and then
Yes.
you ask them to pay for it.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, in my experience, it's really hard to get people to do something that everybody else isn't doing, and then,
Yes.
like I said, to monetize that. So
Yes, yeah.
how did you get started? I mean, who kind of gave you the first shot at this? And because clearly it's a great idea, and we've used it, whatever, but I mean, tough.
Yes, we are an industry of one firm, I would say mostly, and sometimes I joke that our biggest competitor is indifference, but not. We don't really have another direct competitor, which is great and fun. I would say there's sort of three initial three or four that really got us going. The first one, really our first one, was the old Federal Reserve building on Nicollet in Washington, which used to be called Marquette Plaza, now is called the Mark. And they have a big lawn space in front of them. And so I got to know the old property manager there as I was just, talking with anyone and everyone who would listen. And I had a meeting with him, and he did not know I was going to be coming and pitching him, but I said, here's the idea. You've got this big lawn, no one's using it. Give me, here's a minimal budget, and let me run a pilot here. And he said, all right, let's try it out. And so with a lot of bootstrapping, we created a micro program of adding seating, outdoor lawn games, some concerts and other wellness programming there, and signage to get people there, and some other communications. And through that modest effort, we tripled the usage of the space during lunchtime, and we did some survey work to show that people were happier throughout the workday and more satisfied as tenants, and that it was generally contributing to a much better tenant experience. And so we've gotten a lot more nuanced in our data collection since then, but we had from there our first case study of we made some improvements. We saw a dramatic increase in usage, and then we've contributed to end goals that the office owner and leasing team cares about. And that translation of activity to other value is really important for workplaces. If we think about just like a retail district, the footfall or pedestrian traffic is the amenity itself, and you can kind of stop there. But office and other industrial users don't inherently care about activity. They care about tenant satisfaction. And so that extra step did open up a lot of other work for office and industrial properties. And then the other two that kind of got us going were the Loring Greenway. It had us do a very small project for them where we ended up adding some seating for them, which had an impact. Downtown Robbinsdale had us do an assessment of their downtown and their plaza, which they incrementally implemented. And then I'd say like the project that like kind of in the first year really then put us on the new level was Westminster Church on Nicollet and 13th was going through an expansion and had us design, build, program, promote, and operate a plaza adjacent to their church as they were discerning their expansion plans for 3 years. And that was just a really successful program in a high profile location where we just did a lot of, it was the only place in downtown that had movable seating, free games to play, free events that were happening. And we did a lot of fun, innovative stuff there. And it was a location where you could really highlight what was happening. So that was a great case study, which then launched us into doing a lot more work in office buildings and commercial centers and transportation sectors and industrial parks. And but it's all about the data. It's all about, it's not just, it's intuitively a good thing, but collecting the data that shows it's tying back towards core goals of clients is the recipe that has given people the confidence to try something new where they otherwise, have not.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. That's just genius, right? Like that you're really, because all those different examples, they have different objectives.
Yes.
And really understanding what the objective is and then measuring it with surveys or different ways.
A variety of methods depending on what the goals are, yeah.
Wow, that's kind of genius. I mean, that's
it's all about listening, deep listening to figure out what people want. And then we bring the sort of the core service is always the same of building community through a holistic approach to making spaces better through the design, operations, and events in those areas, and applying that same process and lens to a lot of different types of areas.
Yeah. I mean, I've done a couple of deals at Hyde's Project, Northern Stacks, and, when we're showing property, that's important that there's food trucks and the things that you've done to activate that as an industrial community, which is, when you started this 10 years ago, it wasn't the market that it is now for commercial space where we're trying to help businesses retain, attract and retain talent.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of the objective now, but the amenities on properties now compared to what it was 10 years ago. You had to have some people look at you with a little bit of a blank stare and go, don't I understand what you're trying to do here?
Yes. And it was, I definitely got those confused looks early on of like, you want to think about the design of the space, the operations of it, and do events all at the same time. That seems kind of crazy. But that integrated ecosystem is really what makes a space hum. And we don't always have to self-perform that, but it's getting those silos to really connect and talk and relate to each other that makes this things work. And I've learned to just go with the people that understand and are excited about what we're doing. And that, again, has led us into some places that I wasn't expecting, but grateful for those that are excited about it. And we help them achieve their goals and improve the lives of the people in their spaces.
So you've got projects that run across a gamut of different kinds of things. Talk to me about some of your favorite projects.
Yeah. I think one of them I already mentioned was the Piazza on the Mall for Westminster Church, and there were just some sweet things we were able to do there with early on, and like having outdoor ping pong tables and a snow maze that I would personally build because it was a smaller company at that time, and outdoor saunas that we helped launch there. I think other ones that are really special to me are Central Station in downtown St. Paul, which was a plaza that we again designed, built, and programmed for 2 years right in the heart of downtown St. Paul, adjacent to a light rail stop there. And again, we're able to make it's an area that had only negative narrative around it. There's a lot of safety concerns there. And we were able to really make a meaningful difference in not just the narrative around it, but the actual lived experience for all the different types of folks that were there. And there was a belief that sort of the transit riders and youth that were in the space couldn't coexist positively with office workers and residents. And we knew that not to be true, but there was a narrative that was the case. And so, positive in our mind, we have one of our mantras: positive activity drives out negative activity, not people.
I love that.
And so, when you create good things and positive things for people to do, people's behavior changes. And that's ultimately what this process is all about. It's not about who's welcome and who's not. Everyone is welcome, but there's a certain set of behaviors that we all need to adhere to. And when you create an environment that supports people being able to do positive things, lo and behold, they actually respond and treat an environment better, and everything is a virtuous cycle from there. And so it was exciting there to also introduce these positive elements that had never really been brought to downtown St. Paul, and it did in its own way help spur the creation of a business improvement district for downtown there. So
who sponsored that program?
Yeah, it was twofold. The Knight Foundation, which has a local branch in St. Paul, was an early funder of that in collaboration with the city of St. Paul, and then the Downtown Alliance, which was created its second year there. So that was a really special project, and we found that people felt safer. They had more pride in working in downtown St. Paul. They were connecting with their colleagues and coworkers much more, living a healthier lifestyle, and that the perceptions of the space were dramatically changed during the time we were there. So that was one that's near and dear, and really because it was able to serve the totality of everyone that was in downtown St. Paul, which was really fun. And then I think another one recently, it's like over the last 18 months ago, we were invited in to serve as the association manager for 50th in France. So we now not only just do the events, but we are responsible for operating the 50th in France Business Association, which also includes the Edina Art Fair. And so that's just been a really exciting project for us and an exciting district where obviously there's such a strong legacy of 50th in France and what's been there as a unique shopping destination for, many decades at the very least. And to be a steward of that is an honor. And during that time, it's been exciting for us to be able to figure out how to reposition and restructure the organization to more serve the year-round needs of the district. We came in with some challenges of there was historically high vacancy because of the confluence of COVID and construction and new inventory coming on board, and the district had kind of over prioritized the one big event throughout the year, the Edina Art Fair. And it's been really fun to figure out how to crack that nut and get a new generation of people excited and familiar with 50th in France. And so over the last 18 months, we've dramatically increased our programming throughout the year. We've got some great holiday programming coming up with tree lighting on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and then every Saturday after that with live music and other activities. But through this time, we focused on doing fun things to bring in young families that had kind of, again, had a narrative that 50th in France wasn't for them. And so that's included pop-up vintage markets, going back to your elephant, we brought in a lot of llamas. That was one of the most popular events we ever did. We still do. Llamas on the plaza. People love connecting with those animals. Pumpkin painting, wellness events, and just a whole host of things that have brought in new populations. And the effects that we've found is, since from now back to April of 2020, pedestrian traffic is up 30%. Occupancy levels have increased by 10 to 15% back to like an organic vacancy level, from around 80% to upper 90s in terms of occupancy. And again, we can't take I'm not going to take total credit for that. There's a lot of visionary partners and landlords and businesses there too, but being able to play a big part in bringing people back to that area and having a more intentional strategy around how you use programming, activation, outreach, marketing, placemaking, and physical or like outdoor furniture and fixtures to create a really dynamic experience that draws people in and keeps them coming back for more.
That is super cool. Yeah. Wow. That's really neat. Yeah. We've done a lot of leasing at 50th and
Yes,
France.
I see your signs there.
And I had one owner that we had a vacancy, and he had a great showroom window, and I wanted to put puppies in the window, but he wouldn't allow me to do that. So I think that would have been kind of fun.
Well, we'll be there to back you up next time you have that
okay,
idea.
Sounds good.
We'll affirm that that's a good idea.
All right, that sounds good. Well, being in the area, we'd love seeing all that good stuff going on out there. So thanks for what you're doing there. So I think it's just so interesting that you understand kind of the whole commercial real estate piece. I mean, your St. Paul project was a kind of a municipal kind of endeavor, But you really link that to like understanding the needs of property owners and the occupiers of property, and I think that's an interesting marriage, because I feel like so many people who kind of are doing the people part of things or even the creativity of what you do, don't have the ability to grasp what the importance is of, the big bad landlord or property owner, right? You seem to just embrace that versus like kind of feel like it's a this or a that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that there's just lots of opportunity for shared success. And I think that the fact of the matter is, property owners and landlords, one, they have a big impact on people's day-to-day life. We spend a lot of our lives in commercially owned buildings and institutionally owned buildings. And I'm all about serving people. And so let's go to where the people are. People are in commercial buildings. So how do we work with the people that really shape those to see that there's great benefit of creating a humane, vibrant experience for the people in their buildings. And then two, I just think that it is actually in the best interests of landlords and property owners I think COVID has only accelerated these trends to focus on the human, that it's good business sense to focus on the human experience of their buildings. And I think retail was at the forefront of the sort of the winners and losers, sort of, the middle performing shopping centers and districts kind of being hollowed out, and you either have strong winners or places that are struggling. But I think across all asset classes, you're seeing the same. I mean, residential maybe a little bit less, but
But even still, I think the residential people are putting in crazy
amenities. And certainly the amenities, if you're in a historic building, the amenities of the neighborhood matter a tremendous amount. So, but office, I mean, that's going to be there's going to be office buildings, but there's going to be a flight to quality and winners, and there's going to be a lot of places that if the quality of the experience isn't good, people aren't going to renew their lease there. They're going to consolidate into better areas. So I think there's a great business case to be made there, and I think that I also was interested in starting the firm of trying to bring new resources into the public realm and to serve the public, and not to compete with existing governments or nonprofit entities through philanthropic dollars, which are important, but I just saw a huge avenue to bring in more resources dedicated to the human experience through win-wins of commercial real estate. And it was also kind of a challenge to myself of the private sector is I don't know, ruthless, maybe the wrong word, but they only fund things that work. And so it really kind of painted myself into a box on purpose of like, I've really got to figure out a way to really create shared value here, right? for like the things I care about and for the things that our clients care about. Where again, philanthropy is very important, but it doesn't have to be it's not as clear. It doesn't always be clear in terms of the results you generate. So I wanted to kind of force myself to create those results and figure out how to do it. And I knew that would ultimately support a more viable, sustainable business and enterprise that could continue the positive impact that I want to put out in the world. If we could figure out that win-win relationship of how do I, authentically work on the things I care about and that I value, and meet the needs of like the society and marketplace that we live in. So, yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's just amazing. I mean, it's not easy.
No. Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we tend to not be by nature, take the easy path. The easy.
Sometimes I ask myself, I was like, did it have to be this hard? But it's all worth it. It's the journey. It's the journey of growth.
Yeah.
And it is worth it. So,
yeah.
Or for me at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you talked about 50th in France. What other projects are you working on today? And I do want to kind of ask you about COVID. I mean, I think we're tired of talking about it, but like your business is all about bringing people together, and all of a sudden this crazy thing happens where we're supposed to not be together.
Yes, absolutely. Some of the other projects we're really excited about. We've had a multi-year partnership with Mortensen in their Discovery Square campus in Rochester, which it's an innovation campus that they are developing in close collaboration with Mayo. And so it's the first physical place where the Mayo researchers and medical team can interact with the outside world in a shared way. It is actually physically difficult to get into Mayo spaces. And so for Mayo to bring some of their most innovative work into a non-Mayo building, they're doing that intentionally to try to open up those connections. And so our role there is to produce the programming and communications and tenant relations to facilitate those connections with the Mayo team, other large businesses that work with Mayo, and just the broader community. And so that's just been a really meaningful, exciting project. The second phase of building is opening up here in just the next quarter, which is proof towards the overall business model and the idea and vision of the building, and that our small piece in that has been a positive contributor as well. We have also been doing some really meaningful work with Rice and Larpenteur Alliance, which is a new an association advocacy group that's focused on the Rice and Larpenteur intersection at the confluence of St. Paul, Maplewood, and Roseville. It's a dynamic, semi-urban, semi-suburban retail district that serves a low to moderate income, very diverse population there, and it's at the edge of 3 cities, and they all kind of were collectively ignoring it for a while, and then realized that, hey, this is the center for a lot of people's lives. It just happens to be at the edge of our 3 jurisdictions here. So let's create a vision for this place, and let's create an organization to steward it. And so we're their events and placemaking partner there. And as we came in, there was kind of an exclusively negative narrative around the space because there were a couple of bad actors there. There was a bad nightclub that was poorly operated, and St. Paul's Last strip club, which has just since closed, which is great.
Oh, funny.
But we worked with the Alliance to create an event program and do some small business like storefront consultations to not only make it better in the day-to-day, but the events in particular, and especially our big summer block party, really serve to demonstrate that like this place can and should be great. And there's already great things that are here, and there's a lot of positivity, and it just sort of changes the narrative that the people in the space already have, and then also the other stakeholders and sort of media beyond it of, hey, look at all this amazing stuff that actually is happening. And of course, yes, we're not ignoring some of the challenges that may exist here, but let's give people a reason and to showcase all of the legitimate and authentic positivity that's happening there. And so over the course of our multi-year collaboration with them, those events have grown. There's new development interests that have gone in, lots of new businesses, many of them immigrant-owned, continue to open up and operate. And the overall just momentum of that district has totally flipped, in part because of the great work of the Alliance, and as part of that, the events that serve as a way to continue to cement and amplify and demonstrate the momentum and positivity that's there. And I think another one that we were just on the front end of in our collaboration that we're really excited about is working with Pastor Properties on a number of locations. They own a property in 50th in France, and so got to know us a bit through our work there. And then our I really give them kudos for taking their shopping centers that many of which they've owned for generations,
right,
and really seeing that people are valuing the social life and community life of the blend of a commercial district, and looking at how they can take these classic sort of suburban design shopping centers and transform them in a way that is still meeting the needs of where they are, but also supports that broader social life. So we just did kicked off in a holiday event series with them over at their Texatonka shopping center.
Really?
Where they've opened up a whole new plaza space, and the events are serving to reintroduce people to that shopping district and all the new businesses there if they haven't been. And then also working with them as they envision a similar vision of transformation for their Mendota Plaza district. And that has been a multi-year effort for them already, and we're just coming in over the last few months to help them think through some of their public space strategies. But it's really exciting because there's a lot of suburban shopping centers out there, and to think about how to transform them in a way that serves the community better is something that could be very replicable for other owners that are similarly inclined and with that vision.
Howard's done such a good job with, him and his team of taking something that he could very easily have just kind of ridden out, and just elevated it to, the next level. And I give him a lot of credit for that and bringing you in for something like that. That's great. That's great. And then, tell me how you got through COVID. I mean, how did you, all I can see is on your website, all of a sudden there's a lot of posts about, how to be creative because now I have time, it's, your business had to be just changed like overnight.
Yeah, it was fine. It was, I'll just say, business-wise, at the end of the year, I'm like, hey, we did pretty well.
Oh,
the ride between as that happened was always interesting. And so I would say, we did a lot of work with office buildings. A lot of that work was dramatically reduced. Not all of it, but there's, as all office buildings went down to, 5% occupancy or less, there just wasn't a huge need for what we were doing there. But what we did see was a really large increase in our commercial district work as communities were looking for multiple goals, save their small businesses, which were struggling, and they saw that the importance of the public realm in and around their commercial districts was vital in terms of supporting the success and survival of their small businesses. And there's just such a huge need socially that their constituents were articulating for safe venues to gather and come together and be entertained in their outdoor spaces, and to really lean into the social side. And what's interesting, I've always found in the Twin Cities, is we have so many great nature and recreational spaces, but not really that many social plaza spaces that are really just about socializing first and foremost, or sort of that just informal people watching space. And so it was really one positive element of COVID is a lot of these recreational spaces and other maybe social spaces that weren't being used that much, people really leaned into using them in that way. And so there were some one-time sort of COVID response projects that came up. Hennepin County commissioned us to do a number of toolkits to support municipalities and commercial districts on how to activate their spaces during COVID. The city of Wayzata invited us in to help them do some inaugural wintertime activation of the Panaway to both support the small businesses and to model some things that could be done. And one of the most fun things that came out of that was putting in an outdoor curling court there, which was incredibly popular.
That's
and
awesome.
Has come back in subsequent years. And then we did get there were some other side projects that came about that we became a staffing agency for a little bit for COVID testing sites, and that there was a California contractor that was providing the technology that back-ended all the testing sites, and they needed project managers, and they got a hold of us through a variety of so many different connections that got to us. And so we ended up hiring out-of-work theater professionals.
Oh my goodness.
We connected with some theater people in our network that needed work, and they became the on-site project managers for these COVID testing sites. So that's not something that was just us being nimble,
pivoting
temporarily, and it was still somewhat within our core competency, and it was a need, and we were doing our part in the COVID response in that way. But I would say in general, our industrial work kept going strongly. The industrial sector obviously is booming throughout this entire time. So our work with industrial was consistent, and the retail grew. That the office work went down a little bit, but we also do quite a bit of work with public, like transportation projects and planning projects, and those have continued throughout this time too. So the diversity of the types of spaces that we serve was definitely a benefit during COVID, as able to reprioritize and go where the energy was needed.
Right.
But again, all of it comes back to our core approach of activating spaces through the holistic lens of design, operations, and events. And so that allows us to be nimble and pivot as society needs it.
So I was going to ask you about your dreams. Where do you go from here? Except that you didn't get much sleep last night, so you probably didn't have a chance to dream. I understand. But, but like, where does this go from here? I mean, where do you see? I mean, you clearly are a visionary.
Yeah.
So what are you dreaming about?
Yeah. I would love to just continue to use the shared wins for commercial and community to support more meaningful rituals and traditions in our collective societal life. And there are different levels.
What does that mean?
We've got holidays throughout the year and things like that, and I think there's a real hunger for some more like depth and ritual and traditions to kind of mark different times of the year. Obviously, Christmas is in the winter and Easter's in the spring, and you got 4th of July in the summer. You got a variety of holidays, but they are both retail holidays, which is valuable, important for small businesses. But I think there's even more sort of like meaning making that people are looking for, that I think is especially relevant for commercial districts, and they can benefit quite a bit of becoming places of. And I think you see that more in like Europe, where like like the winter festivals and you've got they're big events that are bringing people to the commercial districts, but there's a lot more like, and it's not just religious. It can be like a lot of folk elements to it and theatrics to it. I'll just go down a tangent. One of my son's favorite books is it's a music book that goes through Carnival of Venice. And I was just thinking of, it's still kind of wintry here during Mardi Gras Carnival time, but like I think we could have a huge need for the last, like getting us through that last gray, snowy, muddy mess of March, and having some celebratory element there during a natural time of sort of like release and celebration. And or other things like the Lopet's like luminary, the winter long-standing winter carnival in St. Paul. I just think that there's a huge need for smaller versions of that happening in all of our different places that we're gathering, to just allow people to mark the time and connect with each other, connect with the changing of time and seasons. And so that's sort of my broader dream and vision, is to continue to do this activation work to, again, support community and commerce, but to sort of not just generate the activity and fun, which is also important, and commercial activity, but to make it even more meaningful in people's kind of like emotional and personal and family lives through what we're able to do in space.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think, because traditions change and whatever, but it is really neat when you do kind of some of the same things over and over again. Would you do me a favor and bring back the 8th floor Dayton's? Like at the holiday, the little holiday thing in Santa Claus. Will you do that for me? I miss that.
I'll just say that that's funny you mentioned that, in that there is something percolating that is related to the 8th floor at Dayton's. And
I love that.
And it's
sad. I was up there.
It's not far enough along for me to say what exactly this thing is, but there's something related to that is in the ether that may that may manifest. So,
all right, well, I'll be sending good thoughts in that
Yes,
direction.
yeah.
That's awesome, because it's sad to walk that space today, and know what it was and how much it meant to me as a kid and me as a parent. You know, we made a lot of memories there. So.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me. One of the first events we did was a winter market over in what's now the co-op in Richfield on Lindale for Cornerstone.
Yeah,
and we did a winter market there, and a lot of people came to that event because they used to buy their Christmas tree there. It was an old garden center.
Right? Lindale Garden Center,
yeah. They're like, this was our tradition. We bought our Christmas tree here for 20 years. It's been closed for several years. We were so happy to see that there was something holiday related here because we loved coming to this physical spot to do it. And that was a really interesting.
Neat.
And so I think that, like, it's again, people have those emotional ties to a physical place. That's one of the values that is like commercial and social that is created from this placemaking work. People get an emotional attachment to a physical place, which they can't take with them. And even if something glitzy opens up, across town, you can't take your emotional ties and memories from a place and translate it over there. So there's a stickiness that is valuable for a business or a landlord, but it's really meaningful for people. And so that was just one manifestation of that was really present, of like people. There were hundreds of people that came out because they just wanted to have another holiday experience in that space because that's what they had done for decades before.
That's fascinating, but it makes so much sense. Wow, that kind of stuff has to be really rewarding.
Yes, that's what it's all about.
People, you're kind of in the fun business. Creating really good experiences for people, and that's got to be a pretty rewarding.
Yes, that's what it's all about, is being on site. That's what makes all the emails and meetings and calls worth it.
I suppose, when it actually happens. Well, I so appreciate your being here today. This is super interesting, and like I said, I think what you do is as you've said, really unique, but super important, I think, for all of us. So I appreciate you telling us a little bit more about what you're doing, and wish you so much success.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is a real fun conversation. And for those that are interested at home, we have a lot of free resources where we give away our tools and tips and tricks. So you can go to musicantgroup.com and go to the free ideas tab and learn all the things that we've learned over the last 10 years.
Well, and that's valuable because the devil's in the details. And it's when you do events, there's a lot of details.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, perfect. I hope everybody goes to your website and reaches out to you for help with what they're working on to make people come together and give them joy.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah. Take care.